Tech and clips.
Yeah. Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we have a video that I was asked to check out, and shout out to the Blue for suggesting I check this one out, titled Alice Cooper finally shocked fans about Frank Zappa. Guys, I'm not too sure what this video is all about, but we're gonna watch it together and I'll give my take, so stick with me till then. Let's go.
Picture this. The late 1960s, a time when rock music was breaking all the rules, and Frank Zappa stood at the forefront of the movement.
Okay.
Known for his genius, eccentricity, and uncompromising nature, Zappa was revered by many as a musical pioneer. But behind the brilliance was a man whose personality often alienated those closest to him. Today, Alice Cooper, the legendary frontman and one of Zappa's early protégés, breaks his silence about the man who signed his band to its first record deal, revealing a stormy relationship defined by conflict, control, and clashing egos. When Alice Cooper's band was struggling to find its footing, it was Frank Zappa who gave them their first break. Signing the group to his Straight Records label in 1969, Zappa recognized their potential and encouraged their experimental style. At first it seemed like a perfect match. Zappa was the unconventional maestro, and Cooper's shock rock antics aligned with his outlandish vision. But their partnership was far from smooth. Zappa was notorious for his controlling nature, and Cooper quickly realized that working with him meant surrendering to his demands. Zappa's perfectionism stifled creativity, turning what should have been collaborative sessions into one-man shows. Cooper, an artist known for his rebellious streak, often felt overshadowed and undervalued. What started as mutual admiration soon turned into frustration, as Zappa's need for control began to overshadow the music itself. Frank Zappa's reputation as a musical genius was often overshadowed by his combative personality and the trail of fractured relationships he left behind. His uncompromising leadership style and exacting standards alienated many collaborators, and his confrontations weren't confined to the confines of the mothers of invention. They extended far beyond, involving some of the most notable names in music, from Captain Beefheart to John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and even jazz violinist Jean-Luc Ponty. Zappa's relationship with Captain Beefheart Don Van Vliet is a tale of creative synergy turned sour. The two shared a deep bond in their youth, growing up in the desert town of Lancaster, California, and discovering a mutual love for blues and experimental music. But their working relationship was anything but harmonious. When Zappa agreed to produce Beefheart's Trout Mask replica in 1969, their differences quickly came to the surface. Beefheart's erratic behavior and Zappa's meticulous production style clashed incessantly. While Zappa sought to bring order to the chaotic and ambitious album, Beefheart saw Zappa as overbearing and dismissive of his artistic instincts. The recording sessions were infamously grueling, with Zappa reportedly pushing the musicians to their physical and emotional limits. Beefheart accused Zappa of treating him and his band like tools rather than collaborators. Their friendship deteriorated further as Beefheart became increasingly resentful of Zappa's success and influence. Beefheart publicly criticized Zappa, accusing him of being manipulative and egotistical, while Zappa countered by describing Beefheart as unreliable and difficult to work with. What began as a creative partnership ended in bitterness, with both men refusing to reconcile before Beefheart's death in 2010. Zappa's clash with John Lennon and Yoko Ono was another chapter in his history of tumultuous relationships. In 1971, Lennon and Ono famously joined Zappa and the Mothers of Invention on stage at the Fillmore East in New York City. The performance was chaotic and improvised, blending Zappa's avant-garde style with Lennon's raw energy. While the collaboration seemed groundbreaking at the time, it quickly soured after the show. The conflict arose when Lennon and Ono released the performance on their Sometime in New York City album without consulting Zappa. To make matters worse, they retitled Zappa's composition King Kong as Jamrag and credited it to Lennon and Ono, effectively erasing Zappa's authorship. Furious at what he perceived as theft and disrespect, Zappa publicly criticized Lennon and Ono, describing the incident as a betrayal. Zappa's disdain for Ono's avant-garde approach only added fuel to the fire. He dismissed her contributions to the collaboration as nonsensical and accused her of disrupting the creative flow. For Lennon and Ono, Zappa's biting comments and refusal to collaborate further cemented their fractured relationship. The incident became a prime example of Zappa's inability to compromise, even with artists of Lennon's stature. Zappa's demanding nature also led to a falling out with Jean-Luc Ponty, the acclaimed jazz violinist who collaborated with him in the early 1970s. Ponty, known for his virtuosic playing and innovative use of electric violin, joined Zappa's band during a period when Zappa was exploring more complex and jazz-influenced compositions. At first, their partnership seemed like a perfect fit, with Ponty bringing a fresh dynamic to Zappa's intricate arrangements. However, Zappa's perfectionism and domineering approach quickly became a source of tension. Ponty, who valued artistic freedom, grew frustrated with Zappa's rigid control over every aspect of the music. He felt stifled by Zappa's insistence on dictating every note, leaving little room for improvisation or creative input. Their sessions became increasingly contentious, with Ponty accusing Zappa of treating his collaborators like hired hands rather than equals. The conflict reached a boiling point when Ponty left the band to pursue his solo career. In interviews, Ponty described Zappa as a brilliant but difficult person to work with, someone whose talent was overshadowed by his inability to collaborate without imposing his will. For Zappa, Ponty's departure was another example of a partnership that failed to withstand his relentless drive for control. Frank Zappa's fierce independence and unrelenting creative vision clashed head-on with the rigid structures of the music industry, resulting in some of the most dramatic disputes of his career. Among these, his feud with Warner Bros. Records in the 1970s stands out as a defining chapter. What began as a business relationship quickly devolved into a bitter war of wills that exposed the deep disconnect between Zappa's artistry and the corporate machinery of the music business. Zappa's frustration with Warner Bros. Stemmed from their constant interference in his work. The label's demands for commercially viable releases clashed with Zappa's experimental approach, which prioritized innovation over marketability.
That's true.
Warner Bros. Often delayed the release of his albums, leaving him seething with resentment. For an artist as prolific as Zappa, whose creative output was relentless, these delays felt like a stranglehold on his career. Each passing day without new music being shared with the world was, for Zappa, an unbearable affront. The dispute reached its boiling point with the Lather Project in 1977, a sprawling 4-album concept that Zappa envisioned as a masterpiece. Warner Bros., however, balked at the project's size and ambition, refusing to release it in its intended form. Furious, Zappa accused the label of censoring his creativity, turning what should have been a monumental release into a fragmented and diluted product. The fallout was public and ugly, with Zappa openly condemning Warner Bros. As corporate tyrants more interested in profit than art.
Record labels.
But Warner Bros. Didn't back down.
These record labels, they are all about profit, so I get why they will be having issues with Frank Zappa. This man is in a world of his own. He's a perfectionist. He does what he wants to do. And many a times when, you're assigned to these record labels, they tell you, what to do, because, whatever money they've invested in you, they want to make it back. So if, you are being difficult, you have issues with them, So, I understand where, this is going.
They painted Zappa as a difficult and uncompromising artist. Someone who refused to play by the rules of the industry. To the label, Zappa's demands for creative freedom were impractical and unrealistic in a business driven by sales and charts. Their narrative cast him as an uncooperative maverick, reinforcing his reputation as a polarizing figure within the industry. The legal battle that ensued was drawn out and exhausting. Zappa, never one to shy away from confrontation, fought tirelessly to regain control of his music. The conflict not only delayed several projects but also drained Zappa emotionally and financially. For someone who thrived on creating, being entangled in corporate red tape was a devastating blow. It was a fight for his artistic soul, and while Zappa ultimately retained his integrity, the scars of the battle left him deeply disillusioned. This feud wasn't just about business, it was a clash of ideologies. For Zappa, music was a form of pure expression, untethered to the demands of commercial success. For Warner Bros., it was a product, a commodity to be packaged and sold. This fundamental disconnect made reconciliation impossible. Zappa's eventual departure from the label was both a victory and a defeat. He regained his freedom, but at the cost of his faith in the industry. Zappa's battles with Warner Bros. Reverberated throughout his career. They became a symbol of his defiance, a testament to his refusal to compromise, no matter the cost. Yet they also revealed the toll of his uncompromising nature, leaving behind a trail of broken relationships and missed opportunities. For Zappa, the fight for creative freedom was a battle worth waging, but it came with a price that even he,
Yeah.
with all his resilience, couldn't entirely escape.
Yeah.
In the 1980s, Zappa took on the Parents Music Resource Center (PMRC), an organization that sought to regulate explicit content in music. His fiery testimony before Congress cemented his reputation as a fearless advocate for artistic freedom. But his confrontational approach earned him enemies in high places. While many musicians applauded his stand, Zappa's outspoken nature alienated others who preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Zappa's personal life was as turbulent as his professional one. His relentless dedication to his work left little room for family or personal connections. His children, including Dweezil and Moon Unit Zappa, often spoke of a father who, while supportive of their talents, was emotionally distant. Zappa's obsession with perfection extended to his role as a parent, creating a home environment that was as intense as his music sessions. As Alice Cooper reflects on his time with Zappa, his feelings are bittersweet. He acknowledges the man's genius and the opportunities he provided, but also criticizes the way Zappa's personality often hindered the creative process. For Cooper, Zappa's story is a reminder of the fine line between brilliance and dysfunction, a tale of a man whose genius came at the cost of collaboration and connection. Frank Zappa's legacy is one of contradictions. He was a groundbreaking artist who challenged the norms of music, yet his difficult personality often alienated those around him. His conflicts with collaborators, rivals, and the industry paint a picture of a man who was as combative as he was talented. Through Alice Cooper's revelations, we see a fuller, more complex image of Zappa, a man whose life was as chaotic as the music he created.
Whoa. Okay, guys. Yes. This video, came to an end abruptly. Alice Cooper finally shocks fans about Frank Zappa. Yeah. To me, watching Alice Cooper, finally shocking fans about Frank Zappa, to me as a YouTube reactor, I find myself, really pulled in by the history being shared. Alice Cooper isn't just talking about Frank Zappa, as a legend from afar. He is speaking as someone who was actually there. Someone who lived through that era and felt Frank Zappa's impact firsthand. What stood out to me, is how genuine Alice Cooper's respect for Frank Zappa comes across. Frank Zappa to me wasn't just eccentric for the sake of being eccentric. He had his fearless creativity and sharp intellect that pushed boundaries, and Alice Cooper clearly admired that. Hearing him recount the way Frank Zappa influenced or surprised him gives you this raw behind the scenes look at how revolutionary Frank Zappa really was. As a reviewer, as a YouTube reactor, I love moments like this because they are not just about music. They are about the culture, the risks and the artistic mindset that shaped rock history. Alice Cooper's storytelling definitely felt authentic and personal, and it makes you think about how interconnected these legendary artists were. Overall, my genuine takeaway is that this video is less about shock, in the sensational sense, and more about the awe and respect, that still lingers, when one legend reflects on another. It's a reminder, that Frank Zappa wasn't just a musician. He was a force of nature. That even someone as bold as Alice Cooper, still, marvels at. But he also had his bad side. From what we watched, in the video, he was a difficult, person, to deal with. Like I always say, Frank Zappa, is a perfectionist, and in order for you to work with him, you have to think the way he does. Which made him, difficult, to work with, And with the issue with the record labels, like I said, record labels, that is how they are. They always want to make profit, and if you're an artist and you don't bend to their will, they're gonna blackball you. They're gonna cut you off, and you just be, doing music, but you're not gonna sell, basically, So this was a great watch, But yeah, let me know what you guys will think about Frank Zappa, Alice Cooper, and everything that was said in this video. Let me know down in the comment section. Shout out to Daniel for throwing this my way, guys. If you want me to do more reactions such as this, let me know down in the comment section. Shoot me some suggestions. I'll be here, to watch all these videos with you guys and give my take. My name is Philip, and on to the next video. Take care, stay safe, peace out.